Welcome to the Greater Culture Podcast, where we have conversations about how to elevate the quality of life through movement, nutrition, recovery, and mindset practices. Welcome back to another episode of the Greater Culture Podcast. Your host, Brad Marshall. Today, I am joined by Cristina Anderson. Cristina is a friend who I've gotten to know through some coach development circles. She's also a newly minted level 4 coach in the CrossFit space, which is a major accomplishment. And so I'm really excited today to jump in with her to talk about her own health journey as well as her opportunity to coach others. So Cristina, thanks so much for joining on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. Very excited.
Always love for folks to get a feel and a sense of the story of those who are guests. And so your story is probably similar and in some ways different than others in that you found fitness. It's been a life-changing opportunity for you. There's been, bumps along the road, and it's led to this coaching experience and opportunity that you have. So map out for us a little bit of your own health and fitness journey over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think I, bring a little different flavor to the health and fitness industry. I never was fit as a child, as a teenager. I never, not to say I didn't play sports. I did. I was on the basketball team, but I very famously was trying to play defense when my team was on offense. So I wasn't really athlete of the year in any sense. Just kind of did, the typical things kids do, like, weekend soccer at church and that kind of stuff. But I always was kind of the chubby kid, and that was just something that was really ingrained in me from a young age. And so what I think happened is it caused me to just adopt this mentality of I'm the chubby kid and I'm not an athlete. And so, fast forward a lot of years and, kind of surviving my teenage years of trying to do restrictive diets and lose weight in any way that I could. I stumbled upon CrossFit at one point, and I not only learned that health and fitness is a lot different than what I kind of was brought up to believe, but I also learned that I'm actually quite athletic. And had I, had this opportunity when I was younger, maybe I would have been good at sports. And I just think that, I kind of got labeled as the chubby kid, and therefore I never was given an opportunity to become athletic or be taught how to be athletic. And so my whole philosophy on coaching is that I want to create a safe space in every gym that I'm at to make sure that everyone feels like they have a chance to, find their version of health and fitness and what that looks like, and just discover new things about their capacity and their bodies and what they're capable of.
Yeah, the things you said there, I'm excited to dive into with how you thought about health and fitness or being an athlete at a younger age, and then how that has shaped or kind of made you into the person you are. And then also lately finding CrossFit and maybe changing the definition. So I'd love to start sort of back, like you mentioned. You said you weren't an athlete and you didn't maybe have the physical attributes. So talk to us about how did you develop or come to have that mindset or that perspective of like, athletes are either supposed to look a certain way or be able to do certain things, and I just didn't fit the mold.
Yeah, I mean, oh God, it's just society, I think it just I remember growing up, unfortunately a lot of it was placed on me by my family. I just was always just the heaviest of all my cousins and any other kids in the neighborhood. Like I was the chubby girl. But the thing was, I actually, like, when I look at pictures of myself as a child and even all the way through high school, I never was overly, physically obviously overweight. I've just always been a larger woman. I have broader shoulders. I'm taller than most women. I have curves. I just have a different body shape. And so growing up, I think this was just very common, during the 90s and the early 2000s, where, you kind of learned that the ideal body type is to be skinny and small in general, short, narrow, size small jeans, size 0 jeans. And so, I think a lot of those voices growing up just kind of got it ingrained. And I never saw an example of any type of larger bodied athlete. Any athlete you ever saw, uh, was very lean. And I think you just subconsciously pick up this message that, you know, that's just not me, or thin people go to the gym, thin people are athletic, thin people play sports, and I played the trumpet. So it was just like, it just was, and it's hard to say where it truly came from. But it was some days I wish I could go back and just give little me like a barbell and teach her like, I would have thrown down in the gym, man, if I knew what a barbell was back then.
Yeah. It really is amazing how so many of the, beliefs we have or the ways we think about ourselves or others come from
Yeah.
family, environment, maybe what you see growing up around you. And it's not until a little bit later in life where maybe you start to form some of your own perspectives or ideas or concepts, or maybe, like you said, you need to see others and be like, oh,
Mhm.
I can relate to that person, or maybe I can change the way I'm thinking about this. So was there a certain point in time where, that narrative or the story sort of shifted for you? So that was sort of the grade school, high school, then you kind of leave the school environment, you get out into the world, and you're like, well, this is a whole big new place,
Yeah.
figuring out things for myself. How did your perspective maybe change or maybe stay the same as you sort of transitioned into those years post school?
Yeah. I mean, I would say like post school, definitely kind of fell into that trap of just like, like I said earlier, just very restrictive dieting,
Hmm.
really just trying to fit this mold, trying to shrink my body as much as I possibly could because I, was conditioned to believe that the smaller my body was, the more value I had. And, so that was always my goal. And throughout the journey, I, would sign up at big box gyms and they would always be like, hey, you want to do personal training? I just feel like they knew that like I would pay any amount of money to get skinny. So it was like, they just knew that I would sign up and I always would, do personal training for a time. And I met a lot of really cool trainers and, had some success. Always saw success. It was always very easy for me to lose weight, but I would always gain it all back plus some, because of just the way that I was treating it. I was treating it as this means to change my body rather than understanding what health and fitness actually means. And so somewhere along the journey, one of the personal trainers that I was working with at the big box gym, he found CrossFit. And so he then ended up kind of leaving the big box gym, starting his own box, and then all of a sudden it became a CrossFit gym. So it was very much like I was kind of along on the journey with him as he discovered CrossFit and realized that this was how he wanted to now uh, you know, do health and fitness. He wanted to change his perspective. So when I started getting on the CrossFit wagon, all of a sudden something shifted where there were so many skills and so many, ways to lift the barbell and so many things to strive for. And suddenly it was about doing those things. And it almost had nothing to do with my body anymore. It was just like, what can I do? What can I learn? What can I accomplish? And now all of a sudden, weight loss just happens to be a byproduct of loving this thing. So I think that was really the beginning for me of this shift was just simply finding CrossFit.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you can almost hear the shift of the motivation moving from maybe more of an extrinsic of I want to look a certain way, want to fit into a certain set of clothes, be perceived a certain way by other people. And it works to a certain extent. It gets you in the gym, gets you moving or eating a certain way, but then sooner or later it fizzles out or it's a little bit hollow. And when your motivation shifted to be more intrinsic of enjoying the process of movement, enjoying learning new skills, enjoying lifting a barbell, all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is much more powerful, much more sustaining, and I'm noticing some of the benefits and results that maybe I was hoping for in the first place. So it's interesting that there's that sort of shift in your motivation of looking at the external versus moving internal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious in that process, because I think, a lot of listeners out there, there's just so much information and so many different places that people find that information. How did you go about sort of learning or figuring out for yourself before maybe CrossFit and trainers of what you should do? Because you mentioned that I was just on the restrictive dieting or I was going to global gyms. Like, what was that like for you, just trying to figure it out on your own without the help or guidance of either a coach or somebody?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, you just hear so many things growing up. For me, I think one of my earliest memories of weight loss, and I think a lot of the messages sent to me by my family was, their own fears of, what it would be like for me to be overweight. I think that my parents had such a deep fear of like me being overweight because the fact of the matter is there's such a stigma there. And I think they were trying to protect me from that, but what they didn't realize was that they were causing a deeper issue, right? So when I was 12, we all signed up for Weight Watchers. And I remember that being like one of my first, and I'm 12. Like I think about this now, and I have a 6-year-old daughter, and it makes me so sad to think that, like, to even remotely think about her walking into a Weight Watchers meeting. I think that, when I would sit in those meetings, we would chit chat about ways to avoid eating, essentially. So a lot of the things that I would take away from those meetings carried with me for years and years and years. This mindset of not using salad dressing on my salad, and this mindset of not eating bread, and this mindset of drinking absolutely nothing but water. And like, there are some truths to a lot of the things, but it was such an exaggerated and such a restrictive delivery, where I really adopted this all or nothing mindset for most of my life. So I would either get very, very thin, or I would get very, very heavy, and I never knew how to find this middle ground. So I think it's just, those were the things that stuck, and it was the stuff that you saw it in commercials, you saw it in the media, like no matter where you turned, it was like, I remember the Special K diet. Like, it was like eat one bowl of cereal for breakfast, one bowl of cereal for lunch, and then eat dinner. Like, I mean, that in what world, that is not enough calories for an adult, So it's just like, now that I know what I know, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why did I even, or Slim Fast shakes, so like all of that stuff that was out back then, I just think it just stuck. So even when, like, you bring up an interesting point, even when I did find CrossFit and started to really shift my mindset, you still have to unlearn all of those things, so it
Yeah.
still was a battle of like, when I first started CrossFit, I then dove into paleo, like super restrictive, strict paleo, which wasn't a good choice for me either. So I still was like stumbling my way along to figuring out, oh, wait, eat meats and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar is not as daunting as some of these other, fad diets were throughout my life.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear your perspective, because there are so many of these ingrained things that, whether we heard them as a young kid or just came across them somehow or another, but it's like, yeah, if you want to lose weight, just eat less and do this and do this. And it's like, these are just accepted truths that haven't really been,
Yeah.
researched or looked at. So I think there's some good thought perspectives behind it of like, hey, if we want to lose weight, then we start looking at calories and this and that. But the delivery, like you said, a lot more challenging. And there are so many options. And it's like every single year there's something new coming out as sort of the magic bullet or the magic pill that's going to help you to look the way you want, feel the way you want, etc. versus like you kind of mentioned of treating it almost like an experiment on yourself of like trying things out. Hey, let me try out paleo. Didn't like it. Didn't work for me. Wasn't the results I was looking for. Let me try this out. Maybe it's better, maybe not. But having some core sort of concepts or just big philosophies and everything you do falls underneath that seems like a really helpful perspective for at least you as of now. So I'd be curious when you start to think about like what some of those big concepts are, how you think about your own health and wellness. What are some like those big boulders or those big things that really stand out to you that are meaningful or helpful when it comes to your own health and fitness?
Like currently?
Yeah.
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 Um, excuse me. Yeah, I think, well, first of all, there's been this massive shift where all of a sudden, you know, we're not talking about aesthetic anymore. I've learned, what does healthy and fit look like for me. So I think
Mm.
that step one is removing the aesthetic from the situation. I would like to lean out more and I would like to reduce my body fat more. And I know that I will by doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to be able to do it in a month like I used to do when I was, following restrictive diets and doing the whole yo-yo thing, but I know that what I do is going to eventually very steadily and very slowly get me to where I want to go. So, I think that that's the biggest key. When you stop focusing on your aesthetic and you start focusing on what healthy is, it's a complete game changer, a complete game changer. And so I think that the first time that started to click for me was when I took my CrossFit Level 1. And I remember when they defined fitness and they talked about the calculation of force times distance over time and figuring out the power that is created by a human being. And I remember like sitting there and absolutely fascinated by this because they talk about the example of the 180-pound male, if he squats 2 feet at in this many times, and we can calculate the amount of power that he creates, right? And I remember sitting there and thinking, well, I weigh more than that. So am I creating more power every time I squat? And I remember like just as a joke to myself, and I was like, so am I like the fittest person in here? Like what? But it was like this total shift of like, wow, fitness is created by intensity. That's what we preach in CrossFit. Intensity is what yields results. And not only that, but intensity is also synonymous with power, like creating power. And so suddenly it's like, well, shoot, like how much power can I create in my workout? And what do I need to eat to make that happen? And suddenly it's just like nothing of that, none of the above has anything to do with your ability to see my abs. So it's just like, it just was this complete just shift. And I think that
Mm.
that's the biggest thing, like for anybody that comes to me that's still kind of stuck in that rut of like wanting to lose weight because they want to, fit into a certain thing or wear a bikini or whatever it is. These are all fine goals, but I find that until you make that mental shift to the difference between fit and thin, I think that's just like the biggest key to really breaking through some of that stuff.
Yeah, the two big concepts I heard for you that make a huge difference is one, steady, consistent progress. So knowing, hey, my timeline might be extended, but that's going
Mhm.
to be the rate that's going to be helpful for me. It's going to be allow me to stay consistent to movement and nutrition or whatever it might be. And it's going to allow you to stay in a really good frame of mind. So the steady, consistent approach. And then number two is getting excited about fitness and power output. And what do I got to do to fuel my body so that I can have fun and enjoy the gym? Because if we're having fun, there's a much greater likelihood we're going to stick with whatever it is that
Yeah.
we're doing. So if you're having fun moving a barbell, well, let's get you fueled up so you can keep moving that barbell, and you're going to get some of those fitness like characteristics as a byproduct of it. So that
Yeah.
steady, consistent approach mixed with, hey, I want to have fun. I want to throw some things around in the gym. So I need to fuel myself for that. Two big pieces that help you to live a healthy and fit life.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the idea, or you mentioned going to the L1. which means you're getting yourself prepared to coach, and you've gone through all the levels now. So I'd love for you to talk us through the process of the journey of moving from athlete, figuring out your own health and fitness journey, to now I'm excited and I want to help others on their own journey. So talk us through that shift, and when did that happen for you of like, I want to coach some people and help others in the same thing that I've noticed such a powerful change in?
Yeah, I think, again, at my level one, I mean, oh my gosh, like anybody who's even like remotely interested in CrossFit, like if they ever ask me like, what can I do to learn more about CrossFit? Like 100% take your level one. Like even if you don't plan on coaching, or, you just don't think coaching's for you, like A, you're probably going to change your mind as soon as you take your level one, but B, it's just such an amazing course. So I think that, at my level one, I kind of, obviously this is like an ongoing process of me unlearning all of these kind of beliefs that I have about myself and my body and just, what that means. And so I still didn't quite believe that I belonged there. When I took my level one, it was pretty early on in my weight loss journey, which to this date, I've lost about 100 pounds and kept that off for like 3.5 years, which is really great and like a huge accomplishment for me. Um, but when I was at my level one, this was like the very beginning of my weight loss journey. So definitely felt like I looked different than everybody else. And, just kind of did not believe that I could really coach, like I think the mentality was like, who would want to be coached by me? It's just like you think of coach, you think ripped, jacked, and just like, the ultimate fitness model, right? And so sitting in my level one and making all of these breakthroughs and learning about fitness from a different perspective and really having that like mindset shift made me realize like, wow, I actually feel like I could bring something really different to the table. And I started to get really fired up about maybe instead of my story and my experience being a handicap, maybe this is like my superpower, maybe this is my like, my mark on the earth is like I went through all of this so that I can now turn around and coach and I can help other people to make this mindset shift as well. But like more importantly than that, just people start believing in themselves, because that's what started to happen for me. I started to believe in myself, and uh gosh, it's just so powerful. And so I just man, I bit the bug at my level one and I just didn't want to stop. I just kept going.
Yeah. I love hearing and seeing the excitement of noticing the shift in yourself. Of, a lot of people maybe have heard the term imposter syndrome, or walking into a room and feeling like, I just don't know if I belong. I don't know if I fit in with this group, and how
Mhm.
challenging that can be, and the stories we create and how those hold us back. And you flipped the script and decided, hey, that's not the story I want to tell myself anymore. And I'm going to embrace what I've experienced, what I've gone through, where I'm going, and I want to use that to help other people. Now, when it comes to coaching, and for those out there who've walked into a gym, pretty much everyone has L1, some have L2. You have decided, what, I want to keep progressing. So I'd love to hear your perspective on what has been sort of the motivation or the drive to continue to develop and learn and get better at your craft, rather than just saying, what, I'm an L1, I'm happy, I'm going to just be content here. What was it like for you to have that drive to want to keep learning and growing and advancing?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two things that come to mind. I think, part one is that there is honestly like people listening to this are a coach. Like I don't think there's any better feeling out there than when you just like absolutely nail a class. Like it is just like the best class, Like you just find this incredible progression and people make breakthroughs and people are excited and they thank you at the end because they're like, yeah, coach, like just today I coached handstand walks and like got a bunch of people upside down and like there was just so much excitement. Like to me, there is no better feeling. I don't know what it is. It just it's just feels so good to be able to provide that for people. So I think that's like part one is like, I just want to keep getting better because I want to keep creating those moments in class where like it's just so good. And then the other side of the token too is that I realize that the better I get, the more people that I can be exposed to and that I can teach, right? So like as I increased, my education and moved from level 3 to level 4, now I have people reaching out to me who have similar goals, and I'm able to like be exposed to more people, not only other coaches, but more members, more potential members. Like it has increased my ability to spread the good word of CrossFit, for lack of better term. It's just, it really has helped me to come outside of the four walls of my affiliate and really just like see what's out there. That there's just so much potential out there to really just, enrich people's lives with CrossFit. So I think that that's kind of the other side of it.
Yeah, I can hear the care and compassion you have for others with helping them to get a first movement, in a CrossFit class, see them on their journey, move forward, figuring out and finding ways to impact people who maybe you've never met before or see your story or hear what you've been able to achieve and want and get excited about that as well. So a ton of care and compassion, which leads to, hey, let me go figure out how to do more of this. And one of the things you mentioned too was this idea that the belief started to shift in you that like, hey, I believe I belong on this floor and I can coach these people and I can help improve their lives. Talk to us a little bit about how did you go about building the confidence and the belief? Because as you progress through those levels, I mean, it's not like the classes or the athletes get any easier that you're working with, or if the groups get bigger and bigger, there's still a lot of potential doubt and insecurity there. So talk to us how you've come to build confidence and what can we learn in terms of building some of that belief in ourselves that we can do some tough things.
Yeah. I mean, so first of all, I think like the obvious answer is, that's where the continuing education was, key, right? Like I just kept going to seminars, kept taking classes and filling myself with as much knowledge as humanly possible. But later along in my journey, I started to realize that this was kind of a defense mechanism, right? So I felt like, if I don't belong, I'm just going to make sure that I know all the things and then I'm going to prove that I belong. I'll take the gymnastics course, the weightlifting course, all of the online courses that CrossFit has to offer. I'm going to get my level 3, my level 4. And the thing is, no matter how many of those things that you do, those feelings don't go away, those feelings of insecurity. And so I think it's just a matter of really looking in the mirror and getting to know why you're doing this, right? So it's like you have to be very in touch with your values and your coaching philosophy. And that is what gets you out of bed in the morning and allows you to face the fears that come along with that imposter syndrome or whatever it is that you're struggling with. That is what's going to drive you. Because I learned, and I don't want to say I learned the hard way. It's not like I learned it in a hard lesson, but I just learned over time that like no amount of credentials or classes will ever battle that doubt. It just won't, it's more information and that's great. But the only way that we can truly, truly battle that is by showing up every day and battling it. And I think one story that, quickly comes to mind is, I recently started coaching at a new gym. And I remember there was an athlete here that, he's an elite athlete, really, really good athlete. And he would take my class and kind of do his own warm up and like, what didn't really want to participate. And I definitely felt this air of like, I don't need this, or like I'm better than her. And, obviously that's made up in my head, but it was the vibe I was feeling. And it was such a conundrum. I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know if I was supposed to lay down the law and be like, no, you will do my warm up in class, And so I kind of chose a different route, and I'm actually very happy to report that things are great. Because what I decided to do was just live to my values. So I received the advice to just open up with that whiteboard brief and have so much freaking fun in class that eventually he would want to be a part of it. And sure enough, I mean, we have a great relationship now. We really like broke through this kind of barrier. He's always participating in class, always taking class, has, done a lot less open gym. And I think it was just because I was being me and just, emulating this coaching style that is my own, that I'm very passionate about. And he wanted to be a part of it. So I think sometimes it's just accepting the fact that like you are going to face those people, you are going to face doubters, you are going to face people who the fitness industry is full of people who think they know all the things, a lot of people. And so the only thing you can do is just show up and be yourself, and people want to be a part of that. Awesome. You're going to welcome them with open arms, and if they don't, then they don't, and you just have to accept like I'm not going to be able to affect that person's life, and that's okay. You're going to affect the people that you can affect.
Yeah, I love how that story captures not only how to build confidence, but then how to actually display or execute it. So, having coached however many classes, as many seminars and certifications you've taken, you still get those athletes who are asking or questioning or uncertain if you're able to help them in a certain way. And rather than allowing that to sort of detract or be like, oh, it's going to ruin the class or ruin my day, it's like, you know what? Let me keep doing what I know how to do. And I know how to put on a great class, know how to have fun, know how to get people engaged, know how to help people move a little bit better, and things will take care of themselves. And if they don't, then that's fine. That means that person maybe wasn't the best fit for the gym. But in this case, it worked out that he's loving life, loving taking your classes and moving forward. So building the reps to get better and better, learning what you can. And then once you start to really get confident in your own values, in your own style, be the full version of yourself. Don't feel like you got to emulate or be somebody else. And
Right.
I'm sure even now you probably experienced that as well. Recently having the chance to go to the CrossFit Games, getting a chance to coach on the floor with other
Yeah.
folks who are at the top of their game. What was that experience like for you? So now you've continued to progress, and now you're walking amongst peers who are also at the top of their game. Talk to us. What was that like?
Oh my gosh, it was so scary. Um yeah, so I mean, I was so honored to have been included in the opportunity to coach at the affiliate, which runs at the CrossFit Games. So anybody who doesn't know, we have this affiliate that CrossFit puts together, and people spectating the games can come in and take a class. And there's also other things that are run through the affiliate. There was some level 2 prep courses and a bunch of other presentations. I believe Coach Bergner was there one day. So there's just like a lot of exposure to coaching, which is awesome. And so I was asked to coach as one of the new level 4s, and I, was like, really, me? So it was really scary at first. So then I went in a day early and just kind of watched one of the other classes happening, and I kind of realized like, hey, that's what I do. They were just coaching a class, like, and it's okay. And just adding their own flavor, and just coaching class like any other time. And that was what we were trying to share, right? Like that's why the affiliate is there, is to give people spectating the CrossFit Games exposure to excellent coaching. And so I was like, all right, like I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to coach the best class that I can. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And not to mention that it was like a room full of people who just love CrossFit just as much as I do. So it was just like
Mhm.
it was like the best class. It's just it was really cool. Very honored
Yeah.
to have been given that opportunity.
Yeah, it was really fun. I was fortunate enough to take
Yeah.
Christina's class. First time we actually got to meet in person after connecting virtually for most of our relationship. But what was
Mhm.
really cool was that there's people from all over the world there. Like in
Yeah.
every class, people were from different continents and
Yeah.
countries. It was just wild. And
Yeah.
all, 20, 25 people take a class together. And you're like, this feels like, you can do this anywhere, which I think is what is really powerful about the CrossFit community is you can drop into a gym anywhere, have a similar like experience, and everybody's just trying to work to get a little bit better. So it was really cool and fun experience. And it's unique to hear your thoughts on what it was like to coach people, a room
Yeah.
full of people you've never met before, but
Yeah.
still all the core elements are the same. We've got movements. We're going to warm you up. We're going to take you through some progressions. You're going to have a good time. At the end of it, everybody's a little bit fitter than probably when they walked in.
Yeah. And like, isn't it cool too, though, that like it's just this universal language? Like, I remember like there was a couple guys from Spain and, it's somewhere else too. And I just remember thinking like, wow, like, even if they didn't speak as much English or as clear English as, as I was speaking, I don't speak any other languages, but, you can still understand what's going on. There's this universal, just like, it's so cool. So cool.
It really is. And I'm sure you've had a chance to learn a lot. And even since then, I know you're continuing to help others and build and develop as coaches. So you mentioned that sort of one of the frameworks or bedrocks is, hey, figure out your values, figure out what you stand for, what gets you excited to get out of bed in the morning. What are some of the other best practices you've seen for coaches, especially for those who maybe are interested or like, hey, how do I continue to get better as a coach, provide some great class experiences for those that I'm interacting with? So if I know my values or I know what gets me excited to get out of bed in the morning, any other practical tips or thoughts that you have for coaches who are aspiring to get a little bit better at their craft?
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're so blessed to have social media, right? Like there is just such a plethora of, coaches to follow and, programs to look at and articles to read. And so, I mean, I think that's like, a lot of people get kind of caught up in like, oh, well, I don't really have money to invest in this or like not a lot of time to invest in this. But there's so much out there that's free. Like it's insane, So, again, like finding your favorite seminar staff coaches and following them on Instagram. Like they're all out there, Denise Thomas, Jason Ackerman, Pat Barber. Like there's just so many coaches out there that have this really big social media presence and they're constantly just pumping out great tips, right? So that start there, right? Because that's free and you're scrolling anyway. So you might as well be following some good people. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm getting over a cough from the games actually. So then from there, there's like so many other things. The CrossFit level 1 and level 2 manuals are free public domain. You can Google it, look it up, and that doesn't mean that you have to read it cover to cover. I think that's something that gets people a little bit overwhelmed, but like flipping through the level 1 and just reading through what is fitness. See what CrossFit defines fitness as, because a lot of times we start at our level 1 and then like years go by and we kind of forget about what we learned at the level 1, right? So just kind of that little like review session on like, wait a second, like what exactly does CrossFit define fitness as, and what is CrossFit? Reading the what is CrossFit lectures, I think it just helps solidify why we're doing what we're doing. I think going back to the basics is never a bad idea. So just really kind of not overlooking the fact that some of that simple basic stuff that we learned way in the beginning, it holds a lot of value. And again, you don't have to pay for it. It's all there. It's all available. Even if you lost your PDF from when you printed it out way back when you took your level 1, you can Google it and find the most recent version for free. And you don't even have to print it out. You could just read it off your iPad or whatever. So I think stuff like that, it just often gets overlooked. It just doesn't have to be fancy or cost money. There's a lot out there that is just there for the taking.
Yeah, we are incredibly fortunate to have so many people who've shared thoughts and ideas and insights over the last couple of decades of coaching and the experiences they have to hopefully decrease that learning curve for the rest of us, so we might not make those same mistakes. But so much of it is free and available to go on YouTube and find progressions, or go on Instagram and hear different thoughts or perspectives on some topics that maybe you're trying to unpack, or just go back to the level 1, level 2 manual. Phenomenal resources to just learn, hey, this is how I can communicate health and fitness and wellness to others in a way that might make a major difference in their life. So I love those practical examples. And when you think about practical examples around health and fitness, and CrossFit, I think gets such a big piece around movement of like coming to the class, we're going to move, but it really does focus on so many other factors that help make a quality of life a little bit better. So I'd love to hear from you at this stage of your life. When you think about like those simple, practical things that you've incorporated into your day to day to have a happier, healthier, more fulfilled life, what are some of those things for you that are sort of like the staples, or like the, this is my non-negotiables. I definitely got to get this in my day, and then things will be just fine.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, some type of movement.
Mhm.
And I think something that I've also kind of learned and accepted is the wrong word, but just learned and shifted that mindset again regarding my workout is like sometimes it's okay to just move, right? And I think there's times in life, everybody has these times in life where maybe you're slightly overwhelmed, or there's a lot going on, or you're just not feeling yourself, or not getting enough sleep, whatever it is. We all have these kind of ups and downs, and just like our productivity and how we live our lives. And I think that learning that some days it's okay to be like, you know what, I'm not feeling this workout today. You know, I'm not feeling like getting upside down and, working on a handstand walk is just like not going to fulfill me today. But I can still get some really good movement in by grabbing a bike or a ski erg and doing a little like 20, 30-minute EMOM, alternating between the two, something super simple, right? And I think that like that's something I've learned is like to let go of the leaderboard a little bit. Let go of constantly needing to strive for the next thing, and realizing that okay, as long as I move for 30 minutes a day, whatever that looks like, that's a win, right? And of course, most of my workouts are done with intensity, most of my workouts are done with my goals in mind, but there's also those days where we just have to move, and I know that if I do that, I'm going to have a better day. So I think it's just taking that pressure off away, and just realizing that movement is important in and of itself. So
Mhm.
I'd say that's number one.
I love that. And I love the perspective around why you want to incorporate some movement, because we might have some of those goals we talked about that are extrinsic. We might even have some of the intrinsic of like, hey, I just love moving a barbell. I love working out with intensity. But we start to take a step back, look at our life, be like, hey, today stress level might be a little higher than normal, not getting enough sleep. What's going to be the best thing that I can do that'll enrich the rest of my life and not set me back? And sometimes it's simple rep schemes, simple, short little movement pieces that we know make a huge difference in the way our brains react, the way our bodies react, and help us to be a little bit healthier. So
Yeah.
movement's a critical one. What
Yeah.
are some of the other ones for you that are like, whew, if I get this in my day, I'm a happy person?
Yeah. I think the other thing that really, really helps me is time blocking. And this
Mm,
is something that it took me a while to get into it. I think, when I was initially exposed to time blocking, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm going to sit here and schedule out my life every minute of the day. But something I've learned, and, it's just the nature of what we do as coaches. You get pulled in a lot of different directions, and you are kind of, uh, you know, I don't want to say unwillingly, because it's very willing. I'm happy to be there for people, but like it's unbeknownst to you that you're going to get pulled into people's emotional state, right? Like
mhm.
it's just inevitable. You're going to be pulled in a lot of emotional directions all day. You're going to have some people dealing with struggling in the workout, some people dealing with struggling in life, and they all need you. And so it's very hard to stay grounded in your own things, right? So I think that for me, by time blocking each week, and it doesn't have to be super specific, but just having it be like, okay, from 5:30 a.m. until 10:30 a.m. I am coaching. Okay, so I'm wearing my coaching hat, and I'm there to, in between classes, I'm there to answer questions. I'm there to help you with progressions. I'm there for, and that's when I'm wearing that hat. And then, from 10:30 to 12:30, that's when I'm doing work for my other business, developing coaches, which we touched on a little bit. But I'm doing work there. So I'm either scheduling calls, or I'm, putting out a social media post, or, something of that nature to help with that. And then after that point, it's commuting home. And then I have scheduled time to be with my daughters. And so it's kind of like, it's very broad, but it helps to keep me focused on what I'm doing, and not necessarily allow the multiple directions that you can get pulled into as a coach, cloud the overall goal of what I'm trying to accomplish, right? So I think it just, just having that framework set, it just really helps to stay more productive, and honestly to kind of draw some boundaries, make sure that, because again, we give so much of ourselves as coaches, and it's okay. Like, I signed up for it, I want it, I love being able to give to people, but you do have to set those boundaries, because otherwise you won't be able to function. You won't have your own well-being, and that's
Mhm.
important for health and fitness as well.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important piece there of understanding at different points in time throughout the day, I'm going to be wearing a variety of hats, and I can be the best version of myself if I'm fully in and fully committed to whatever the hat is that I'm wearing. So when I'm coach, let me coach. When I'm being mom, let me be mom. And we can run into those problems when things start to bleed over and it's like, oh, I want to be with my kids, but I'm still thinking about or trying to accomplish work tasks or whatever that might look like. So blocking off time, knowing, hey, this is when I'm fully committed to what's in front of me, helps you to stay a little bit more balanced, perhaps, but also stay a little bit at a higher level of performance too, because we're really committing to whatever the task is that's right in front of us. So I really like that perspective of wearing a lot of hats, knowing that it might feel busy, but it helps us to be more productive, more selective with our attention and our
Yeah.
time. So movement, time blocking, two great resources for folks who are interested in leveling up or improving, maybe their day to day. So give you a chance to try that out.
Yeah.
Well, Cristina, I want to say thanks so much for taking us through not only your health and fitness journey, but helping us walk through what it's like to be a coach and move from level 1 to level 4, how we build confidence, how we can change the stories, the belief systems we might be having that are holding us back. And also just what are some practical tips for leveling up our own coaching as well as our lives. So for folks who are interested to connect or learn more about you or reach out to you, what are some of the best places that folks can touch base with you?
You can definitely follow me on Instagram. My handle is at coach, is it underscore? Yeah, at coach _Cristina Anderson with one A. So it's like one word. Blurred
Mm-hmm.
into the next. So you can definitely find me there. Shoot me a DM. However, a lot of times when people DM me, I'll tell them to email me, because it just gets a little crowded in there. So my email is coach.cristinanderson, same way, one word with one A in the middle, at gmail.com. So I'm there as well, and would be so much more than happy to chat with anybody. I've had a lot of help throughout the years, from different mentors, and just providing advice and answering questions. So I'm so happy to pay it forward and do the same for others.
Yeah, Christina is a great follow on social posts. A lot of awesome content, especially relating to coaches out there who might be thinking or feeling a certain way and how you can overcome that to be the best possible version of yourself on the floor and for those that you get to show up with. So highly recommend that. So Christina, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Thank you.
Appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was fun.